My name is Ennio Senese. I'm the Group CEO of OHROS Consulting Group, and I'm very pleased to be a guest in the office of Optics11, doing a bit of a conversation, call it an interview, with Coco Geluk, who is the Managing Director of Optics11. Coco, it's great to do this conversation. I look forward to have some exchange and an interview with you on various topics. I would like to hear about your life, your presence, the values that drive you, and maybe drill down on the proposition of Optics11. And yeah, that's really what I would be looking for. Is there anything that you would like to get out of this conversation?
Likewise, Ennio, it's a pleasure to have you here. And actually, I think it is a good opportunity for us because OHROS is also, I would say, one of the best consultants that I know in the asset management and grid resilience business. So pleasure to have the conversation. Optics11 has two branches. So we've got an underwater security part, which is focusing on companies who have offshore assets like energy companies, of course. Defense industry is important for us. And the other branch is the energy branch. So that's what I'm the managing director of. Somebody I knew well from the business, Paul Hayden, became the CEO of Optics11, and we had a couple of discussions on the development of the business. And I learned that the Optics11 concept is based on a revolutionary way of listening with light, and which has such a high sensitivity. There's multiple applications and use cases where you could actually apply this measurement principle. And one of the applications that has been built once for a Smith Transformers, large transformer manufacturer globally, but they are in Nijmegen actually. And they have actually worked with Optics11 and they have a system in place that actually finds partial discharge in huge transformers. A partial discharge is, let's say, the main reason for degradation of transformers. Basically, in the end, kills every transformer. Could be after 50 years, could be after 2 years. And they use this system to actually localize the source of the partial discharge within these big transformers. And imagine transformers for TSOs and big power generators are about 8 to 10 meters long, 5 meters high, and 5 meters wide. They're placed in a big container filled with oil, and if you test if you test the transformer positively on partial discharge, it will take you weeks, if not months, to localize the source of partial discharge. And our system is so sensitive it can actually hear partial discharge, and actually using triangulation. So we put sensors on the outside of the tank, and using triangulation, you could exactly point where the partial discharge sit. So always been at the forefront of new developments, liberalization of the energy market, introduction of smart meters, introduction of this concept of finding contact voltages, and I'm also passionate about building business and supporting the grid operators, making the grid more resilient. And also, I think my strong belief is that if you make the grid more resilient, it helps the energy transition, which I think is also important for our planet and for the future of my children.
When you say listening with light, what exactly can you give maybe a non-technical description, if that's possible at all?
Yes, and as I'm not an engineer, I'm usually using non-technical descriptions. So there's two things that I can answer to this one. First of all, about the measurement principle itself. Which has been developed at the Free University in Amsterdam, VU. And this is a measurement principle that actually uses sensors that are actually receiving an optical signal through an optical fiber cable. And the way the sensor is structured, it has such a high sensitivity that it can actually pick up any vibration with the sensitivity of a nano of a nano of a nano. And so sounds generate vibrations, and vibrations will be picked up by the sensor. And so sensitivity is, I think, one of the key benefits of this measurement principle. One of the other benefits is that you do not need to power your sensors, so you don't need electricity to power the sensors, which in a lot of environments is a benefit because it's immune to any external emissions. Secondly, especially also for the underwater applications that we have, electricity and water do not really go well together. And last but not least, if you use optical sensing technology and optical communication, it's basically distance agnostic. So if you look at our underwater portfolio, for instance, the underwater microphones that we call hydrophones, you can easily put 100 kilometers away from the initial power source, because you can just put an optical fiber cable on the bottom of the sea, and then basically have unlimited speed of light. Yeah, you do not have restrictions there. The same goes for the OptiFender system that we use for partial discharge measurement. It is very important, for instance, at a big substation, that you do not have distance limits. So you can put the interrogator, as we call it, so the machine itself, somewhere in a dry cabinet, could even be 100 or 200 meters away. We tested up to 40 kilometers away, by the way, and then actually manage the measurements and the sensors from a long distance. The other answer is, why do you need such a sensitivity? Partial discharge is currently, of course, already since 150 years, when they started to use transformers, is something that is causing a lot of stress for asset operators. And the most traditional ways of checking whether transformers have partial discharge or not are basically all telling you that you have a partial discharge in the States. It basically became a problem because any other, like the dissolved gas analysis, where they take a sample of the oil, send it to a lab, and you can then actually, at a certain moment of development of partial discharge, see in the chemical substance of the oil that there is partial discharge in the transformer. But that's already in a very far developed stage.
Yeah, in a very reactive mode.
Where then you basically, as an asset operator, only have got the message that you have a problem. Where if you can listen with the sensitivity that our system has, it allows you to continuously monitor your asset, your big transformer, and you will actually hear partial discharge in a very early stage. And the other thing is, all the other technologies do not tell you where the partial discharge sits in the transformer.
One of the main reasons why we at OHROS Consulting Group are so eager to work with Optics11 is that we, being an asset management specialist, being out there all the time with DSOs, generation, refineries, asset-intensive industries. There are a lot of transformers there, small but also very large ones. And our overarching theme in everything that we do when it comes to asset management is a discussion about resilience. So we like to look at resilience from an operational excellence perspective, as well as from a risk management perspective, which, by the way, is both addressed by implementing, top-notch, best in class, if you like, asset management processes. So when you do that, you then basically, this is what we do with our clients. We help them identifying the best asset management process for them. We help them if they want to get certified for ISO 55000, 55001, and all of that is great. But if you drill down in the verticals of the business, of the operations, you find certain aspects of the business, like partial discharge in transformers, which is causing a lot of havoc, a lot of problems. And as a matter of fact, we have identified with some of our clients that reasons for entire blackouts or local blackouts are often related to partial discharge. So when I heard about Optics11 and the solution, we knew that was a niche opportunity, the same way we perceive ourselves as being a niche advisory boutique, if you like, because there are not many companies out there that do similar things so specialized as we do when it comes to asset management. And I'm not saying that because of any type of sales pitch, because that's the reality. We know where we are in those terms. So the core of what we bring to the market is asset management, strategic asset management, as well as operational, mechanical, or if you want, tactical. And that's the core. And then the industries are asset intensive. Now, having said all that, I think the issue is not just a partial discharge, right? It's not just partial discharge. It's also the data gathering that is related to partial discharge, because there are many tools out there that help identify or early spotting of issues anywhere in the entire chain of a grid. Whether that is a transformer or whether it is cables or poles. There are many systems doing that, and many of these systems have all a very unique proposition to offer. The key issue is often how companies elaborate on the data that is extracted from that information, because at the end, if your system has an early spotting of an issue when it comes to partial discharge, that's one thing, but that is data. And then the question is, how is that data going to be elaborated? How is it translated into the proper actions? Do you have any idea on that? Is there any? I know that you have some companies where you have launched the Optics11 solution already. Could you tell me a little bit more about how that is working?
Yeah, exactly. So what a system actually does, if you use the word system when talking to an asset manager, they think about the hardware, but the main part of a proposition is actually that we supply them with a system which gives them online insight in the status of the asset, specifically targeted to partial discharge. So, and of course you have to install the hardware, and it's non-intrusive. You can stick a system on a big transformer within 2 hours. But the main reason for having the hardware is that you need to transfer the data to the system, but the system is actually doing all the work. So the system is actually based on the algorithms that we have developed, is actually not giving a whole bucket full of data. Of course, you can get access to the data, but it actually gives you actionable results. So if the partial discharge activity comes beyond a certain threshold that you set in the system, it tells you exactly where the partial discharge is, what kind of partial discharge it is, and we train our customers on explaining what the next step then will be. And so it's if we currently look at our customers, there are a few motivations. Of course, resilience is one. So if you look at a general installed base, a general fleet of a big TSO, for instance, then it is typically that you identify a critical number of assets that would actually require an online and continuous monitoring. So that gives you a continuous insight in the status of your assets. If you look at more critical, you mentioned oil refineries, who belong also to the customer group of OHROS. We work with power generators, and these typically have very critical operational processes. If their transformer breaks down, they just cannot do their business, cannot
when
generate
I say
power.
refineries, it's more about refineries that have a lot of transformers as well. They have small ones, they're bigger ones, and some of the refineries actually have their own power generation. Whether it's gas, oil, or a combined cycle type of, but they have power generation, and hence they have
Exactly
transformers as well. And of course, a partial discharge there is equally a problem, the way it is for TSO or for generation in general. Where do you think that the market will be in, let's say, 5 years? For if you have I'm sure you have a 5-year plan. We never discussed it, but if you have a 5-year plan, to what extent do you see the product being I don't want to say commodity, but to be at least known in a large part of the generation and the TSO domain, for example. Where do you think you will be in 5 years?
So what we see now is there's a lot of interest from the market. So if you look at the big parties who are basically not only producing power transformers but also supplying the services, they actually acknowledge that we fill in a gap in what's currently on the market in monitoring platforms, monitoring systems, etc. So we currently are developing cooperation with companies that actually provide those services. We see a lot of interest from the transformer OEMs, who actually are not only going to use the system for their own factory acceptance test, but also going to resell the system with transformers,
Yes.
actually to foster the resilience in the grid. So if you look from now to 5 years ahead, we see the attention and the for the existence of our system at all rapidly changing. So that is something that is, I would say, a very promising trend. So my expectation in 5 years, this will be, I would say, a system that is widely adopted by all the industries that have critical processes using big transformers.
What I also see and what we bump into almost on a daily basis is that often processes at the client side are not necessarily fit for purpose. And if you introduce something new, it's basically creating a bit of a hiccup in the system as well. So where do you see a fit for example, the need to have services like process optimization and all that? Do you see that in a combined effort with the technical solution that Optics11 is?
Yeah, well, we see our solution basically in the end as a tool that could be used by any asset operator themselves or by any party providing services. So our system allows service companies, that could be big ones, could be smaller local ones, to actually provide monitoring services. But we also have, we work with a TSO together who says, I've got my own service department, they do the services, so we will procure the systems and operate them. So there's a mix of that. It's also possible to integrate the software module of the system into wider platforms. Because we of course see a trend that in the expansion of the grids, the TSO grids and the DSO grids, monitoring of the new substation becomes a kind of a standard, and this could be a part of the entire monitoring solution provided by another party. So we see different ways.
They outsource kind of, the specialized type of service that they need in order to perform, rather than having it.
They either outsource it or they procure, the asset operators procure an entire monitoring platform that includes more systems. I also came to the conclusion here that we do not really have a competitor if you look at the technical part of our solution, because there's no other system that does what ours does. When I joined the company, of course, we had a competitor analysis, and I look at it. And when I then bumped into those so-called competitors, that they actually started to explain me that we are not competitors because we are in an adjacent space. Many systems do monitoring. Many systems can give a kind of an indication that there's partial discharge on the substation, but there's no other system than the OptiFender that actually tells exactly where the partial discharge in the transformer sits, and there's no other system that is that sensitive that can detect partial discharge at such an early stage. So our system could be well managed on a standalone basis, can be managed with the online monitoring module that we provide, but could be very well be integrated in a larger implementation of a larger platform. In any case, I think you mentioned, adaptation of new technology will take some time. On the other hand, I see more and more awareness coming to the market that we are actually, as a global market, not getting enough transformers for the expansion of our grids to support the electrification. So lifetime extension of the existing assets and protection of the newly installed assets becomes more and more important. And what we see is a trend that the monitoring systems and solutions are getting much more traction than in the past.
We mentioned the word services a couple of times. To your mind, what does that entail? I mean, it's a black box, where it says services. If you open the black box, what's in it?
Yeah, it is very clear. So we are a deep tech provider. So we provide a system. And as I mentioned, we can provide it directly to the end user. We can provide it to service companies. And what is then actually the service? The service that I see developing now is monitoring services. So service companies who actually sell a monitoring service. And of course, then you have to put a system on transformers. That's basically not what they sell. What they sell is a service where they monitor assets, collect the data, take action when needed, which actually turns the whole service cycle into let's do service where we need it, rather than let's provide service if a transformer has an issue, or let's do service because it's scheduled to have service. It's really condition-based maintenance, and this system really allows the condition-based maintenance of the transformers be much more efficient, foster the resilience of that part of the system, but also take into account not only the scarcity of transformers as such, but also of labor.
Yeah. And but if you say, if you say the service focusing on monitoring services, right? So in my mind, I'm looking at a TSO, a national TSO.
Yes.
And they decide to on their 100 transformers to have the system installed. So where does the service kicks in? Is it like they buy the tool, and the tool gets installed, and then the decision is whether to integrate it into their processes, and having done that by consultants, or having it done by themselves somehow, or with the support of Optics11, or where are the services located, to your mind, precisely?
The located services for me are located with specific service providers. So there is big transformer OEMs also providing services, and there are, of course, specialized service companies that provide services, and there are also system integrators involved in building the platforms. So in all these instances, there is an opportunity to integrate the OptiDefender system in the solution that is provided to the end user, to the asset operator. And then it's between the service provider and the asset operator whether the asset operator is actually using the monitoring platform and calling off service when, based on the data and the actions provided by the OptiDefender system, service to the transformer is required, or the entire monitoring, including the maintenance of the transformer.
That's more in the technical domain, though.
Will be, yeah. Well, there's two, I would say, two takes on that. We are talking to quite some parties who actually see an opportunity to expand their services to asset operators, and say, hey, we have a maintenance contract with you guys, but if we actually put monitoring systems on your critical assets, that would actually allow us to give you much better service, and it allows us to give you exactly the service where we know it's needed, because we now know much more about your asset.
Yes, so this is very much on the operational, call it tactical side, but to your mind, how would that be leverage to the strategic level in for example in asset management? I got some ideas, but I'm very curious to hear yours.
Yeah, my experience also in my previous businesses is that if you can actually push the capex investment in your current assets out for a couple of years, that would actually allow you to spend the money somewhere else.
Yes.
And so maintenance based on extremely good insight in the status of your transformers will allow you to actually extend the lifetime of your transformers and push out the capex investments. I think that is one thing. And on the other thing, the energy system is becoming more and more critical at the moment due to the continuous electrification. So resilience of the energy system is becoming more and more important. The vulnerability of the energy system is not only caused by external threats, but also by the aging of the assets. So I think what I see when talking to our target customers and our end customers is that this strategic part becomes more and more important.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you have that, right? I'm always thinking when I hear these solutions, how is that? How can you convert it into a quantifiable benefit? And so one of the things that you mentioned is the delayed capex, the ability to maybe or to avoid expenditure where you would have otherwise spent the money. It's also prevention, like preventing a transformer to burn out entirely, which basically could save anywhere between, on average, between $6 and $10 million dollars, I would think. So all of these type of benefits are quantifiable. Did you have ever had conversations about this with C-level folks in TSOs and DSOs? And what, if so, what was their line of responding or thinking?
Yeah, we did. And of course, there's always a kind of initial thoughts, specifically with larger grid operators. We have resilience. But then if you look at the availability of new transformers, if you bring that at the table, then suddenly the redundancy also becomes a risk, because redundancy was always assumed to give safety. But if you're expanding the grid and you think you have redundancy, but also the pressure on the grid is expanding, then combined with the scarcity of transformers in the future, then suddenly one realizes that redundancy is not a given anymore. So that's one thing. The other thing that really inspired me is a conversation with a big Italian power generator who actually have done a study. And the theme of the study was, in my translation was, what did it cost when my transformer broke down? And actually the lady who was leading that investigation showed me that the total cost of a breakdown of a transformer for them as a power generator was 20.5 million euros. Because not only all the technical stress, but the lost revenue, the penalties they got, etc. Where if they would have proactively monitored and maintained that asset, total cost would have been somewhere around 600,000 euro.
Yeah,
so that was for them quite an easy discussion and an easy assessment. Should we monitor our assets, yes or no? Because they learned the hard way.
Yeah, so that's almost like a no-brainer. The issue, which I spotted, if you identify a problem in a company, they often find it very difficult to, in the inside of the company, to transfer that message upwards, because they don't want to be seen as the messenger of bad news, right? And did you encounter that as well?
Of course, I know the business already for a long time, but Ennio, the thing is that partial discharge was always something that happened after a long time in old transformers.
Yes.
But now, due to the different dynamics in the grid, due to all the different power sources, power generation sources, etc., one sees that the degradation of a transformer could go quite quickly. So I think the topic certainly got attention on a much higher level, even C-level. So that is, I think one thing. And the other thing is, what we currently do, how we introduce our product in the market is these sales cycles are very long in typically the traditional grid operator market. However, I think the best way of testing the concept is seeing is believing. So we performed a lot of proof of concept with all kind of different customers. And what happens now is that some of our customers, there's a TSO we work with who actually, after the first week of demonstration, asked us, "Oh, this is great. Would you allow us to show this? Because I have a meeting with a couple of other TSOs and I would love to share this because this is really great, So we see that all these trials and conversations that we have are actually translating into customers that start promoting, hey, we found something that allows you to manage the resilience of your transformers much better. So it is kind of a friend get a friend without us asking them. It also helps if other potential customers ask us for, can we talk to somebody who is actually using it? That we currently have customers who are actually using the product and really are that enthusiastic that they really are advocates. It also helps to work with a company like OHROS. I think you are one of the few consultants that I've met who really understand asset management and really understand the importance of resilience. But resilience is such a buzzword. I think you also support your customers, but also us, to actually translate this into, and what does that then mean? What do you actually have to do today and tomorrow to actually make the grid more resilient? So it's an awareness that is growing. It is, we mainly prove it by just putting our technology on transformers of asset operators and take it from there.
Yeah, well, that's very helpful. For me personally, being the CEO of OHROS, I feel that we always wanted to deliver value to our customers, and value is also a buzzword unless you are also able to quantify it. So we always try, when we do a project, to identify the benefits and to make it an investment rather than an OPEX for the client, because there is a return, right? So the way we look at it is that we have two dimensions where we look to optimize the cost base. But the one is bottom line, so cost avoidance, margin improvement. On the other hand, capex avoidance if necessary. All those things are bottom line, if you want, both OPEX and capex. And the other one is total cost of ownership. Right, so if you can reduce your total cost of ownership eventually, well, it starts with identifying your total cost of ownership, but then you can also show it to the customer, and you really deliver value. That's where I think Optics11 and OHROS Consulting Group meet each other, because we can enhance each other's proposition in the market. Thank you very much for this very enlightening interview.
Thank you, Ennio.
Look forward to further develop for the sake of the market and and the resilience of the future generations.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.